That fateful night remains a mystery to me. Perhaps it was destiny playing tricks on me, for events unfolded like a catastrophic train collision. My wife, Samantha, who was never the subtlest, suddenly plunged into an unanticipated madness. We had planned a peaceful Friday evening, nothing extravagant, perhaps a movie, some takeout, just the two of us. However, just as we were about to settle in, she appeared downstairs in a tight red dress that seemed more suited for a runway than our living room. I was left bewildered by her appearance. "Where are you going?" I inquired, my question tinged with humor, thinking it was a prank. She swiftly replied, "Out," without missing a beat, hinting she was going with friends. I knew she hadn't made any plans earlier, as she had spent the day complaining of exhaustion from work. Yet here she was, dressed to impress, heels on her feet, makeup fresh, and hair meticulously styled, not something one does when tired, right? Her statement didn't seem to make sense to me. "You omitted that bit before," I said, attempting to sound casual. "You never specified you were going to the club earlier." She let out an eye roll. "Don't I always have the right to keep some details to myself?" she went on. "I'm simply heading there for a drink." It wasn't significant, but my stomach still tightened. Recent arguments between Samantha and me had been minor discussions about work pressures, my gym routine, her constant phone notifications. However, the offhanded way she spoke, showing no interest in my thoughts, felt like a blow to my gut. I couldn't just brush it aside. "Which club are you visiting? Who will be there with you?" I attempted to maintain an even tone, but the tension in the room was palpable. She turned to me, releasing an overdramatic sigh, as if I were the source of the problem. "Why do you feel the need to know everything? I'm merely meeting acquaintances. Loosen up." That's when it dawned on me she was lying, and her attempt at deception was feeble. She spoke carelessly, feigning indifference, suggesting she didn't mind if I accepted her explanation or not. "I'm inquiring because it's odd, Sam," I retorted, tightening my voice. "Going from utterly exhausted to I need a night out in an instant. Who are these friends? Why are you dressed like that?" Her countenance transformed unexpectedly. She didn't respond defensively as anticipated. Instead, she smirked, a self-satisfied, annoying expression that said, "I don't owe you any explanations." "Not that it concerns you," she stated, her voice filled with sarcasm. "But I require some respite from this situation." She swept her hand through the air, encompassing everything, even me. "From you, if we're being truthful." I remained silent for a moment, stunned. That was a direct hit, targeting me squarely. Anger surged within me, yes, fury. However, what bewildered me more was the way she said it, as though I was merely an inconvenience rather than her spouse. "So, this is how things will be?" I inquired, attempting to remain calm. Yet, my heart pounded. "You suddenly decide you need a break, put on a dress, and leave me for the night without notice. You seem self-assured, as if you've already won some internal debate. I can't stop you, but you should know I won't be here if you return." Your voice had a harsh tone, challenging me to intervene. I approached you, hoping to see a trace of the woman I knew. "Samantha," I said softly, "if you leave this room now, don't expect me to be here upon your return." And in that instant, she crumbled, not as I expected. She didn't apologize or back down. Instead, she did something more hurtful. She laughed. "You really think I care about that? You think I don't understand the situation? You're afraid. Afraid I'm living my life while you're stuck in yours." That was it. I couldn't take it anymore. "What are you talking about?" However, she didn't seem to be listening. She picked up her keys, tears beginning to form in her eyes. With anger more than likely fueling her actions, she pushed past me, her heels clacking against the floor, and in a final act of spite, she declared, "I'm going out, whether you approve or not." And with that, she vanished. The door echoed behind her, leaving me bewildered and enraged. I stood rooted in the hallway for a while, contemplating our encounter. What on earth transpired? Was this merely a dramatic explosion, or was there a deeper issue at play? Upon the door slamming shut, it seemed as if the entire house fell into an eerie hush. My thoughts whirled, but a voice within me urged me not to let things end so abruptly. I snatched my phone, pacing back and forth, grappling with what action to take. It wasn't simply that she departed, it was her method of departure, the chill, the smirk, the total disregard for our collective past. Something wasn't right, and I couldn't dismiss the feeling that this wasn't a simple night out with friends. This was larger, more ominous. I browsed through her social media, scanning old photos in search of hints, things I had possibly overlooked earlier. Each smiling picture, each caption about love and life now seemed like a bitter jest. Then it struck me. She had a friend named Mia. They used to be close, but recently Sam seldom mentioned her. We hadn't seen them together in months. Impulsively, I messaged Mia. "Hey, is Sam with you tonight?" The swift reply gave me a surprise. "No, she hasn't been around for weeks." Why? That was my first shock of the night. She wasn't with her old friends. So where on earth was she? I didn't even respond to Mia. My actions were already in motion, heart racing, trying to comprehend the situation. The club. Didn't she mention a club once? It didn't take long before I pieced together the puzzle. There was this one place she had visited a few times with her colleagues. Lux, an upscale spot downtown. It was the kind of place she usually disliked due to its noise and crowd. Increasingly, she'd been bringing it up. A force was drawing her there, and I sensed it wasn't the music. I retrieved my keys. My mind swarmed with rage, perplexity, a multitude of questions I couldn't answer. As I navigated the city, I repeatedly revisited the instant she departed, striving to decipher where everything went awry. Did I play a role? Was I oblivious to the indications? By the time I arrived at the club, my thoughts were disordered. I parked on the sidewalk. My fingers clenched the steering wheel so tightly they turned pale. Inside, it mirrored my expectations. Flashing lights, a congested crowd, music so intense it was almost inaudible. I barged through the throng, scrutinizing every visage, heart pounding. And then I spotted her. She was at the bar, huddled close, excessively near to some man. Tall, muscular, with a gaze that provoked a desire to retaliate merely for being present. They were chuckling. Despite not hearing their conversation, it held no significance. Her hand rested on his arm, causing an eerie sensation reminiscent of the barbecue to rise up my back. This wasn't a casual evening. I reacted instinctively, fueled by anger as I approached. Upon being within a few feet of them, she became aware of my presence. Her face momentarily paled, as if she had been discovered in the act. Yet, swiftly regaining composure, she bestowed a self-satisfied smile upon me, implying that I was the one out of place. "Why are you here?" she asked, her tone dripping with sarcasm, as if this scenario were ordinary. "The question should be directed at you," I retorted, my voice barely restrained. The man beside her glanced between us, sensing the tension but remaining stationary, seemingly entertained by the situation. She took a sip of her drink indifferently. "I told you I was unavailable. You're acting irrationally." My fists clenched at my sides as I felt a surge of anger. "Who is he, Sam, you ask?" My smile broadened as I faced him, no longer trying to conceal it. "Oh, him? Merely someone I encountered. No big deal." That was it. That moment when everything within me shattered the deceit, the indifference, the audacity to do this in my presence. It all came crashing down at once. No big deal? You seriously expect me to believe that? After everything, you have the gall to say that? She laughed, yes, laughed, as if I were a fool standing before her. "Don't be so dramatic. You're making this out to be more than it is." I was taken aback by what I heard. She treated me as if I was insignificant, as if our shared life meant nothing. The man, still there with his foolish grin, remained silent, merely observing the spectacle, as if it were some form of amusement. I stepped nearer to her, meeting her gaze squarely. "I won't leave until you reveal the truth." "What's happening, Sam?" For once, she hesitated. For a brief instant, her outwardly assured facade faltered, and she averted her eyes from mine. Swiftly, she regained her composure, her voice turning frosty. "Do you truly wish to know?" she growled. "Very well. I'm fed up with you with us, with a charade of being a happy couple. I desire more than what you can provide." Her words landed heavier than any blow. There it was, the reality, bold and unsentimental. She didn't care. Not about me, not about our relationship. She had had enough, and she lacked the courtesy to hide it. I remained stationary, dumbfounded, as she collected her drink and returned her focus to the other man, as if I were invisible. For a short while, I stood rooted, the club's noise becoming indistinct. Her words, "I'm fed up with us, I want more," reverberated persistently within my mind. I was unable to comprehend it. How could she so casually discard everything? From shared laughter and private banter to her standing here, unfazed, with a stranger acting as if I wasn't there. Despite the shock, it was rage that ensued. My sight blurred with fury. No longer merely hurt, I was enraged. "Want more?" I snarled, edging closer to her and him, who stood smugly, as though he were a spectator at the most captivating performance of the night. "What on earth do you mean by more, Sam? More deception? More covert escapades? More of this?" I waved my hand between them, my voice escalating over the thumping music. "Is this your concept of more?" She feigned a yawn, as if tired of our dialogue. "Apparently, you still don't comprehend, do you? You've been ensconced in your little bubble for months now, preoccupied with work, the gym, your hobbies, and you presume I should simply stay home, waiting for your attention. Here's a piece of advice. You can't disregard me whenever it suits you." "Ignore me?" I retorted, my voice filled with astonishment. "Ignore me? I've made countless efforts to ensure our marriage thrives. And this is how you repay me, by fleeing with some unknown man at a nightclub." At that moment, the arrogant man, Mr. Smug, chose to speak up. "Perhaps," he said, his voice dripping with self-assurance, "you two should take this outside, don't you think? It's not really anyone else's business." I glared at him, a look that could have pierced his soul. "You'd better keep quiet before I decide to make it my business," I growled, stepping towards him. The man straightened up, probably thinking I wouldn't act, but I was beyond rational thought now. I was ready to annihilate him. Recognizing the tension, Samantha intervened, positioning herself between us and placing a hand on my chest, as if to restrain me. "Cease it," she hissed angrily, her eyes filled with annoyance, not worry. "You're humiliating yourself." I was humiliating myself. I was taken aback by her audacity. "You're the one secretly acting behind my back, and yet I am the one who is humiliated." She let her hand fall to her side and folded her arms, her attitude icy and disdainful. "This isn't about him. This is about us, or rather, about you." She leaned towards me, softening her voice so only I could hear, but the venom in her words was palpable. "You've been so preoccupied with being the perfect husband and controlling everything that you didn't even notice when I stopped caring. I'm finished, understand? I'm finished feigning that this is something it isn't. I need more than this life, more than you." Her words cut through me like a knife. There was no apology, no remorse, not a hint of guilt in her eyes, only cold indifference. But then she said something that tipped the scale. "Aren't you accusing me of infidelity?" she retorted, her eyes sharp. "Far from it." She glanced at the man, and in that instant, I perceived everything: the late nights out, the clandestine meetings, the deceit. It all became clear. It wasn't merely about him. It was about her amusement, her game. I cracked. I began to rage. My fists balled up so hard my nails pierced my palms. "You're telling me this isn't the tip of the iceberg? What on earth have you been doing in secret from me, Sam? It seems like you've been relishing your covert adventures more than I ever knew." She remained unflustered, unperturbed even. "I'm stating that I no longer owe you explanations. I intend to live as I please, regardless of your opinion." Before I could retaliate, before I could grasp the extent of her defiance, she uttered a phrase that would linger in my mind throughout the night. "If you can't accept this, perhaps you should depart. I won't return to you anymore." That was it. That was her concluding action. After countless sleepless nights, numerous excuses, and a web of deceit she had weaved. Now, it was apparent she didn't bother about my presence. In truth, she was instructing me to depart. As I surveyed the vicinity, I sensed everyone's gaze fixed on us now. We had become the spectacle. People feigned indifference, but their furtive glances betrayed them, as they observed this unpleasant spectacle. And there I was, amidst it all, my spouse standing beside another man, informing me that she was finished. I retreated a step, craving fresh air and room. My inner self roared to battle, to question, to compel her to acknowledge the truth. Yet, gazing at her, observing her disregard for me like I was simply an inconvenience in her evening, I comprehended something. She wouldn't confess anything. There would be no apology, no remedy. There was no more struggle here. Without uttering another syllable, I spun and departed. Each step seemed as if I was tearing a fragment of myself away from that room, abandoning it. Remaining would have annihilated whatever scraps of dignity I clung to. I managed to reach my car, hands trembling, vision clouded with anger and bewilderment. What on earth had transpired? The reality slammed into me like a freight train as I sat in the driver's seat. She didn't merely depart our marriage tonight. She incinerated it, drenched everything we shared in gasoline, and ignited it herself. There I was, trapped in the wreckage, gripping the steering wheel, struggling to breathe. My hands quivered uncontrollably and my chest constricted, making me feel as if I was suffocating. The events that had unfolded, the deceit, her callous disregard, whirled in my mind like a tempest. I couldn't comprehend it. How did this happen? How did she transform from the woman I adored into someone who could stand before everyone and declare she no longer cared? My phone vibrated in my pocket. For a fleeting instant, I contemplated whether it could be her, coming to apologize or explain something human. But it was not. It was a text from my best friend, Jason. "Hey, what's up? You all right?" Jason had no inkling of the catastrophe that had recently engulfed my life within hours. I disregarded his message and flung the phone onto the front seat. How could I articulate this situation? How could I share with anyone that the very core of my life had just shattered into fragments without a second thought? I remained motionless, focusing on the windshield, struggling to comprehend the events unfolding. The world outside seemed alien, as if observed from behind a heavy veil of glass. Strangers walked by, laughing, couples, tipsy from the club, staggered out. And there I was, teetering on the brink of collapse under the enormity of it all. As if the universe hadn't already dealt me a harsh blow, another question surfaced. What if this wasn't the first time? Had I been wrong about her late nights, her claims of working overtime or going out with friends? Were these deceits all along? For how long had she hidden this from me? Months? A year? This revelation caused a sickening feeling in my gut. I demanded answers. Not that she'd offer them willingly, but I wouldn't let this pass. I couldn't bear the dark uncertainty, being left to speculate about how long I had been duped. I refused to let her dictate the story any longer. Not anymore. My phone vibrated once more. It was her now. "Samantha, your outburst reminded me of a child having a tantrum. I hope you've exhausted yourself." This message struck harder than anything she had said in the club. It wasn't merely unkind. It seemed she was mocking me, belittling me as if I were an ignorant fool incapable of dealing with reality. And what stung the most wasn't even the content of the message. It was her casual tone. This wasn't a minor squabble, but a major threat to our marriage, yet she remained indifferent. My anger surged. I yearned to retaliate, to shout at her, to let her know it was her who had destroyed everything. Yet I knew that's what she sought. A response. Something she could twist to cast me as the antagonist. Instead, I took a different approach. I dialed her number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. On the brink of hanging up, she answered. "Impressive, you finally decided to mature," she said, her voice dripping with cynicism. "Samantha," I replied, striving to maintain my composure. "Regardless of your gains tonight, you'll tell me the truth. For how long has this been happening?" She sighed as if I was an annoyance. "Ah, this old chestnut again. I told you it's not what you think. But if you need a number to sleep at night, all right. A few months." Satisfied, her lack of concern was astounding. She confessed to months of deceit, secretive behavior, and her words conveyed nonchalance akin to forgetting a grocery item. For months, she had been undermining me, presenting herself as a devoted spouse during the day, only to evade with whom she pleased at night. My sight clouded with fury. "How could you do this?" I questioned, my voice wavering with shock. How could you face me daily, aware of your actions? How could you so easily cast aside everything that mattered as if it held no significance? Her reaction, a derisive chuckle, not a worried chuckle, not a remorseful chuckle, a callous, unfeeling chuckle. Cast away what? She retorted, her voice edgy. This meant nothing. Our marriage, for a long time, has been devoid of substance, and you were too engrossed in your role as the ideal husband to discern. So don't present yourself as a victim. You're merely upset because I'm no longer playing your perfect spouse act. Each word struck like a blow. She did not perceive her actions as betrayal. She viewed it as freedom from me, from our life, from everything I believed we embodied. I felt an urge to shout at her, label her every insult, demolish her like she's tearing me apart. But I didn't. She wasn't worth it anymore. Instead, I ended the call. I couldn't bear another word. I flung my phone into the car, where it hit the door with a muffled thud. My hands were still trembling. However, the rage now consumed me more intensely than before, not just at her, but at myself, for failing to notice earlier, for allowing her to trample on me for so long, for granting her the power to shatter my world. I remained seated in the car, gazing at the vacant street ahead, my thoughts swirling. What next? Divorce? Was this the path we were treading? Could I return home, knowing she'd likely be there, with that self-satisfied expression on her face, challenging me to respond? Yet, despite my desire to leave, to burn the connection and move on, a part of me remained. Frustrated and longing for answers beyond her flimsy explanations, I sought the raw, unpalatable truth. I ignited the engine and set off, not towards home or any specific destination, simply driving aimlessly. My pursuit remained undefined, yet I was certain I wouldn't discover it confined in a desolate parking lot, stewing in my rage. The turmoil had just commenced, and I sensed this was merely the prelude to more disorder. For hours I drove, as time became an abstract concept. Each streetlight that flickered past melted into the next, mirroring my thoughts racing like skidding tires on icy roads, going round and round without progress. The thought of returning home, possibly encountering her there as if nothing had transpired, was unbearable. I wasn't prepared for it yet, not after the bombshell revelations. My phone lay in the passenger seat, glaring at me with an air of retribution. A part of me wished to hurl it from the car, hoping somehow that would expunge the entire ordeal. However, I realized I couldn't evade it, regardless of how far I drove or how much I attempted to elude the predicament. It was always there, lurking for me to confront it. Eventually, I found myself in a vacant parking lot near the river, a place where I often sought solace when I needed to think. Silence filled the car as I turned off the engine and watched the moonlight dance on the water. The scene felt unsettling. Everything seemed tranquil outside, while my world was in turmoil. My phone screen flickered again, and I hesitated before looking at it, half expecting a disparaging message from her. But this time, it wasn't Sam. It was Jason. "Hey bro, you've been gone for hours. Are you okay? Call me." I studied the text for a long while, feeling a whirlwind of emotions. For years, Jason had been my closest friend, always there to support me. He sensed something was amiss, but had no idea how profoundly I was hurt. I wrestled with a decision to confide in him. But what could I possibly say? "Hey man, it turns out my wife has been unfaithful for months." Discovered my betrayal in the midst of a nightclub as she mockingly laughed at me about it. I wasn't prepared for this conversation. Instead, I slouched back in my seat and let the memories repeat endlessly. It had been months since she'd been deceiving me, treated me like an ignorant fool while she pursued her desires unchecked. What was more disheartening was that she didn't even make an attempt to conceal it this night. No regret, no embarrassment, just callous insensitivity. I recalled all the instances where I trusted her blindly. The late-night business meetings, the impromptu outings, her sudden phone privacy. Previously, I suspected I was paranoid. At times, I even blamed myself, thinking perhaps I wasn't providing enough support or overthinking it. Turned out, I wasn't thinking enough. The memory of that night at the club haunts me, still her with him, her taunting smirk, the way she spoke to me as if I were insignificant. She didn't merely cheat on me, she shattered me. The hardest part was her apparent indifference. I played the phone conversation repeatedly in my mind, hearing her voice echo with those words. This had been nothing for a long while now. It wasn't the infidelity that caused the greatest pain. It was discovering she had left our marriage long ago. I was the last to find out. I lived in denial, trying to mend something that was already shattered without realizing it. My heart constricted, and a wave of nausea swept over me. I exited the car, taking deep breaths of the cold night air. It felt like everything was collapsing around me at once: the betrayal, the lies, the fact that I stood alone. I walked to the river's edge, gazing out at the water, struggling to maintain my balance. What next? What on earth should I do now? Divorce seemed unavoidable, but the thought of going through it, dismantling our entire lives, dividing assets, splitting what used to be ours, was overwhelming. Explanation to peers about the situation with my partner was overwhelming. Yet, the other option seemed unthinkable: staying with her, trying to smooth things over as if this were just a bump in the road. The image of her with that man, laughing carelessly, was too ingrained in my mind. There was no turning back from this, no mending what had been broken. My phone vibrated once more, and I knew I had to take the call. Jason was on the line. I waited a moment before picking up. "Hey," I managed to say, my voice ragged as I struggled to maintain composure. "Hey, what's going on? You've been out of touch for hours. Are you all right?" His tone was laden with worry, the kind only a best friend could express. I hesitated, feeling the burden of truth pressing upon me. But I couldn't keep it in any longer. The choice was to reveal everything now or risk being consumed by my thoughts. "Sam is cheating on me," I finally admitted. Words I barely recognized left my lips. Announcing it made it tangible, more real than I had anticipated. For months, and only tonight, did I discover the truth. At a club with him. The silence that followed was profound. Jason remained silent for a significant moment, likely attempting to comprehend what I'd just shared. Eventually, he whispered, "Goodness gracious, man, I'm at a loss for words." "Oh," I replied tersely, studying the black water. "I'm not sure either. Where are you now? Do you need me to come get you? We can work through this together." "By the river," I responded, merely seeking some fresh air. Jason's tone softened. "Regardless of what you require, I'm here for you. We'll find a way. She's not worth it, man. You don't deserve this predicament." I acknowledged his intentions were good. However, the reality was that nothing anyone could say would alter the fact that my world had just crumbled around me. "We'll work things out. How do we fix something like this?" I feigned strength. "I'm okay," I lied. "I simply need some time to ponder. I appreciate your support, but I think I need space to sort through this on my own." Jason urged me to take as much time as necessary, yet his reluctance to end the call was palpable. "Don't face this on your own," he advised, promising to be there if needed. As we disconnected, I found myself alone in the tranquil silence, gazing at the moonlit ripples of the river. The soothing sound of flowing water seemed almost hypnotic, offering a calming effect that caught me off guard. However, my thoughts refused to rest. Memories of Sam, her grin, her laughter, and the pain of her deceit constantly replayed in my mind. I had given her all trust, loyalty, love, but received nothing but falsehoods in return, months' worth. The bitter truth struck me. There was no turning back, not this time. The end was here. For what seemed like hours, I stood by the river, feeling the biting cold of the night air barely registering as my mind raced and my heart pounded ceaselessly. Each decision I'd ever made about myself, about us, now felt like a joke. The affection I believed we shared was falling apart before my eyes, resembling a tangled plot line in a film. Yet, there was no pause button. Instead, I found myself raking my fingers through my hair and wandering restlessly. My entire being was torn between fury and sadness. How could she? How could she confront me daily, knowing her infidelity hid beneath our shared smiles and whispered, "I love you," images of their exchanges, encounters, and those seemingly insignificant moments when she chose him over me started to flash through my mind. It was not just the act, but the deceit, the planning, the lies that hurt most. The disrespect, every goodnight kiss, and professed love were part of the same web of falsehoods. I no longer recognized her. Perhaps I never did. That realization stung deeper than anything else. Maybe she had always been this cold, selfish betrayer at heart. It felt as if I'd spent years loving a figment of my imagination, someone who was never truly real. And the truth shattered me. Returned to the car, climbed inside, shutting the door forcefully. The stillness within was oppressive yet necessary for decision-making. I couldn't remain static in this pain for eternity. My life was disintegrating in reality, and inaction meant losing what little control I retained. Action was required. In the driver's seat, I gazed at the vacant road, made the call. I decided against another confrontation with her. No desire to let her witness my suffering or endure more pain. I was done participating in her sick game. I took a deep breath and dialed my attorney. The decision wasn't impulsive. Deep within me, I knew this was the sole escape route. Divorce. The word weighed heavily, finality breathed in it, but also felt right. There was no going back after this. Trying to salvage the situation would only exacerbate the problems. She had already made her choice. Time had come for me to take action. The phone echoed with David's groggy voice after a few rings. "Groggy," he replied. I had overlooked the hour, but my current situation didn't allow for such luxuries. My world lay in shambles and demanded immediate response. "David, it's me," I managed, keeping my voice composed. "I need to discuss divorce tonight." There was a moment of silence from his end, as if he were weighing the gravity of my words. "All right, let's meet tomorrow morning," he agreed cautiously. "Are you absolutely certain about this now?" I confirmed with renewed resolve, more assured than I truly felt. This certainty had never been stronger. "Very well," David responded, now fully awake. "We'll kick things off in the morning. I'll guide you through the process. I apologize, my friend." I ended the call, feeling a peculiar blend of relief and sorrow. The word divorce had lost its abstractness. It was no longer a hypothetical concept, but a harsh reality. My marriage, once thought unyielding, had crumbled, and there was no reversal. For some time, I clutched the steering wheel, allowing the weight of my decision to settle. Beneath the searing rage within me lay an oppressive sorrow. This wasn't how I envisioned my marriage ending, but it had become a matter of survival, of extracting myself from the wreckage before it consumed me entirely. The journey home was eerie, the streets mostly deserted, bathed in the ghostly light of street lamps. The drive seemed surreal, as if I were drifting through a nightmare I couldn't escape. Upon arrival, my house felt strange, as if it no longer belonged to me. She was likely inside, either asleep or waiting for me with some warped explanation for her actions. I wasn't prepared for that dialogue yet, not just yet. Instead, I entered quietly, ensuring not to disturb anything. The house was dark, and for a fleeting instant, I wondered if she had returned to the club. Then I beheld her seated at the kitchen table, holding a glass of wine, phone nearby. The sight of her didn't even prompt surprise. Instead, she continued to gaze at me with a self-satisfied expression, as if anticipating my collapse. "So soon back," she commented, her voice echoing mock concern. "I assumed you'd be gone all night brooding." I remained silent, unable to respond. The loathing I harbored for her in that moment was intense. It seemed she intended to provoke me, but I refused to grant her that pleasure. Instead, I simply met her gaze and uttered the only words I had left. "I consulted a lawyer and will be filing for divorce tomorrow." In her countenance, I detected a change, not fear, exactly. But there was a brief flash of something, perhaps surprise. This fleeting emotion vanished as quickly as it emerged. She took a leisurely sip from her wine, maintaining eye contact with me all the while. "So you found some backbone then?" she commented, her lips curling into a frosty grin. "I suppose it was overdue." I remained silent. There was no need to respond. This wasn't about her anymore. This was about me regaining control of my life and my destiny. I turned and ascended the stairs, paying her no mind. She wasn't worth the attention. Not anymore. Upon reaching the bedroom, I seized a suitcase and began packing. I wouldn't spend another night under the same roof as her. Not tonight, not ever again. The burden was still heavy upon me. But now, at least, there was a path forward. As I closed the suitcase, her footsteps echoed up the stairs. She halted at the threshold, propping herself against the frame, observing me. Already running away, she taunted. How typical. I continued packing without interruption. You'll be hearing from my lawyer tomorrow, I said, keeping my back to her. It's over, Sam. She seemed about to deliver a parting blow, another cruel word to add pain to the wound. But instead, she merely shrugged and walked away, descending the stairs once more. As I exited that house with my suitcase in tow, I didn't look back. I headed to a hotel, my mind filled with the aftermath of events, yet one thought echoed persistently. I was free. The hotel room felt like a threshold, a place between the remnants of my past and the unknown future. The soft drone of the air conditioner was the only sound as I stood by the window, gazing out at the dark parking lot. My suitcase lay open on the bed behind me, a stark testament to my departure. I had left. I had chosen. The decision was irreversible. Yet despite the slight sense of relief, I also felt adrift. Free from Sam, yes, but free for what? For the first time in years, I lacked a plan. There was no one to confide in, no future I had charted out. Everything seemed attached to her, the house, the life we'd constructed, the future we'd envisioned. Now it all seemed to be slipping away like grains of sand sliding through my grasp. My phone vibrated once more, reeling me back into the present. It was a message from Jason. Jason, give me a call, man. I don't care about the hour. Just do it. I contemplated the screen, hesitating. I knew I needed to speak with him, but I wasn't certain if I was prepared. How does one express something as complicated as this? How does one say, surprise? It turns out my wife has been unfaithful for months, and now everything I thought was true is a fabrication. But Jason was my best friend. If there's anyone who could help me navigate the chaos in my mind, it's him. I punched in his number and held the phone to my ear, feeling a peculiar sense of apprehension as it rang. He answered on the second ring, his voice laden with worry. At last. What's up? Dude, you vanished all of a sudden. I split from her, I informed. I'm currently at a hotel. Jason gave out a soft whistle. That means it's truly over, right? Affirmative. It is. She has been unfaithful, Jason. For quite some time now, possibly even longer. I discovered the truth tonight. I fell silent, choking back the emotion. The words felt harder to utter than ever before. There was a prolonged silence on the other end. I could sense Jason trying to grasp what I had disclosed. Goodness gracious, mate. I had no inkling of it. I'm truly sorry. Exactly, I responded, feeling the burden wash over me once more. I wasn't aware either. Not until tonight. How did you find out? Jason inquired gently, avoiding any probing questions but needing clarification. I remembered the nightclub, the mirthful laughter, her sarcastic, uncaring smile. I trailed her to a club. She claimed she was going out with friends, but she wasn't. Instead, she was with another man, and she didn't even bother to conceal it. It seemed clear what she intended for me to perceive. Jason muttered an oath. That's harsh, mate. I'm at a loss for words. How are you? Are you managing? I chuckled bitterly. Frankly, I'm uncertain. I've been struggling to comprehend it for the past few hours. I don't think I've fully processed it yet. Do you need anything? Jason inquired. I could come over. We could discuss it face to face. You shouldn't be alone now. Perhaps tomorrow, I replied, though a part of me wished to avoid confrontation. I require time to absorb this. Things are moving too fast. One moment I thought we were just having another argument. The next, I was filing for divorce. After a brief pause, Jason said, I understand. But hear me out. You made the right decision. It feels like the ground has been taken from beneath you, but it will get better. You don't deserve such treatment. She didn't respect you, friend. She doesn't deserve you. I nodded, although he couldn't see me. He was correct, yet his words lacked substance. Regardless of my improved situation sans her, at this moment, all I felt was the sorrow. You're right, I conceded, though it didn't resonate. I merely wish things didn't have to unfold this way. I understand, buddy. I comprehend. Jason's tone grew softer. Consider each step separately. There's no need to decide everything now. Just breathe. Together, we'll find a solution. We conversed for a while more before I eventually disconnected. Speaking with Jason was beneficial, but it failed to alleviate the void within me. I remained seated in darkness for quite some time, gazing out the window, pondering over how things had spun so awry. How had I missed the signs? How had I allowed matters to deteriorate without noticing? Alas, dwelling on the past would yield no alterations. The reality was our journey here held little relevance. What mattered was Sam made her decision, and now I must face mine. I rose, strolling towards my luggage, and unfastened it. Inside, there were only a few garments, my laptop, some necessities. It felt peculiar, residing in this hotel, unsure of the following day, uncertain about the shape of my life now. Then, while extracting my phone charger, I spotted something in the front compartment of my suitcase, my wedding ring. I hadn't even noticed I'd removed it. I gripped it, feeling its heft, recalling the moment I placed it on her finger. The vows we made, the assurances we believed would last a lifetime. How naive that seemed now. For a while, I gazed at it intently, a surge of emotion swelling within me. It was merely metal, yet it symbolized everything I'd lost tonight, everything I thought was genuine. Now, it was simply a memento of a life that no longer existed. Without contemplation, I turned towards the window and flung it open. The chilly night breeze gusted in, nipping at my flesh, but I didn't mind. Last glance at the ring, heart-laden. Anger exploded, casting it into the abyss of darkness. Gone, consumed by night, mirror to my marriage's demise. I slammed the window shut, crashing onto the bed, staring at the ceiling, burden now total. No retreat. The bed felt oppressive. Budget hotel linens scratched my flesh indifferently. Mind distant, wandering between the past and the looming future. Replaying that decisive act, hurling my wedding ring into the night to emptiness. A symbolic severance of a tie already torn asunder. Rolled over, faced the clock. 3:42 m. Slumber eluded me tonight. Body drained, mind incessant. Each time I shut my eyes, her visage appeared Sam, her impassive, uncaring gaze from the club, the derisive laughter she flung at me, the laughter that marked our end. I strove to occupy my thoughts with something else, anything else, but my mind perpetually returned to her. I despised her for what she wrought, yet it was her indifference that galled me most. No apologies, no regrets. It seemed as if all the years we shared meant nothing. The holidays, the lazy Sundays, the hushed, I love you-s in the dark. They amounted to naught. I rose from the bed, my legs hanging over its side. The serene hum of the hotel room now felt stifling. I required air, required movement, required a reminder that I was still alive, and not merely dwelling in this emotional limbo. Scooping up my jacket, I exited the room and ventured outside. The frigid air struck me like a blow to the face, but it was preferable to feeling deadened. The parking lot lay vacant save for several cars huddled beneath dim streetlights. All else remained still, except for me. I set off walking, unsure of my destination, yet indifferent. The urgency to advance, to escape the relentless thoughts haunting me, was paramount. My strides became rhythmic as my mind replayed every fragment of our matrimony, hunting for understanding. Could this have been prevented? Were there signals I missed at the onset? Was there a turning point where I could have intervened, salvaged, altered the trajectory of our lives together? But these musings were futile. It no longer mattered. I couldn't reverse her actions. I couldn't erase the reality that she had deceived me in the most devastating fashion, and I couldn't ignore the lingering part within me that still cherished her, or rather, the illusion of her I once believed in. My phone vibrated against my hip. For a brief instant, I contemplated disregarding it, but my curiosity ultimately prevailed. I retrieved the phone and found a message from Mia, an old acquaintance of Sam's, the person I had texted earlier in the evening while I was still in disbelief, attempting to comprehend everything. Mia wrote, "I'm not sure if I should share this, but you may want to be aware. I became privy to certain information about Sam a while ago, though I initially believed it wasn't my business. I apologize. I had no idea the situation was as severe." I halted, fixated on the screen. My heart pounded. Mia had knowledge. She held back information from me. I responded swiftly, my fingers trembling, possibly due to the cold, or perhaps from anger. "Me, what exactly did you learn? For how long have you known?" The response arrived promptly. "Mia, I wasn't absolutely certain. There were whispers at work. People frequently observed her dining with someone during lunch hours. A man. Initially, they assumed it was harmless flirting, but it later became more evident. I hesitated to disclose anything. I didn't want to falsely accuse her if the allegations weren't true. Lunches, it seems, were not just social outings. During the day as well, she disguised it under the pretext of work. I felt queasy. Continuing to walk, my thoughts spun, responding without a second thought. "Me, why didn't you inform me?" Another swift response. "Mia, frankly, I wasn't certain it was my place to tell. I'm sorry. I should have spoken up. I simply didn't want to be the one to shatter your illusion if I wasn't positive." I halted, my breath suspended in the frosty air. Mia wasn't entirely at fault, but knowing that those around us, our confidants, had noticed the flaws and remained silent made the treachery all the more unbearable. How many others knew? Who else was privy to the secret, watching me live my life, completely unaware? My stomach churned again, and I felt a surge of nausea. Leaning against a lamppost, I closed my eyes, attempting to regain composure. However, nothing seemed secure anymore. Not my marriage, not my friendships, not even my comprehension of the last few years. Action was needed. I felt compelled to resolve this issue any way possible. Filing for divorce was a start, but it wasn't enough. I had to speak with Sam one last time, not for her sake, but mine. I desired her confession. I yearned to hear the truth from her lips. I needed her to confess all. I sought authenticity, not the deceptive stories she had given me. Impulsively, I turned and walked back towards the hotel. My strides became quicker now, driven by rage and adrenaline. My phone was still in my grasp, and before I could dissuade myself, I dialed her number. After 2 rings, she picked up. "Really?" she said, her voice weary. "What now?" I clenched my teeth. "I want the truth, Sam." A long silence followed, then a sigh. "We've already discussed this." "No, we haven't," I retorted. "You haven't shared anything. I need to know everything. Duration, parties involved, everything." After a moment of quietness, she replied, with frostiness in her voice, "Very well. You want the truth? It's been ongoing for quite some time. I can't recall when it began. I lost count. It was simply different. Not you." My heart raced within me. Different from what? What did that imply? "It implies," she retorted sharply, "that I desired more. More thrill, more excitement. You became monotonous. The life we shared wasn't fulfilling enough for me." I stood there, speechless, my mind whirling. Monotonous. She was ready to abandon everything due to boredom. "You should have communicated with me," I stammered, my voice cracking. "You could have told me you weren't content." "And what would that have changed?" she retorted. "You don't understand, do you? I had already left. I didn't want to mend it. I wanted out. And this—" She paused, her voice growing softer with feigned empathy. "This was just the most convenient means to depart." Her words struck me like a freight train. She never intended to salvage us. She didn't want me, didn't want our shared life. She had made up her mind long ago, before I even suspected anything was amiss. For some time, neither of us spoke. A heavy silence pervaded our gap, one that spoke volumes. "I'll be filing for divorce tomorrow," I eventually uttered, my voice lifeless. "You'll receive them soon." "Possibly," she replied instantly. That was what I desired. With that, she disconnected. The line fell silent, and I remained standing in the deserted parking lot, phone still against my ear, as if struck by a punch yet again. This was it, the final chapter. There were no more secrets to unearth. No more illusions of reconciliation. The truth had been laid bare, harsh and unadorned, leaving only fragments to gather from what once was my life. I returned to the hotel, my body devoid of sensation. The divorce would be the concluding act, the official farewell. But emotionally, we had already parted ways. All that remained was a cold, hollow void where our marriage had stood before.